Imagine prompting an AI, getting up from your desk, walking away, and then like 4 hours later you return to find it has built a fully functional multiplayer clone of Grand Theft Auto Vice City.
Right.
Or, imagine an AI just silently QA testing your app in the background of your computer. Like clicking through menus, identifying bugs, and actually fixing them while you're eating lunch.
Yeah, and that isn't some sci-fi pitch for next year. I mean,
Yeah.
that is exactly what is happening on machines right now.
It's wild. Welcome, divers, to this deep dive. We're looking at how OpenAI has, well, they've quietly executed this massive shift in how we interact with software.
Massive.
Yeah, they've merged ChatGPT and Codex into a single unified super app, and they dropped the highly capable GPT 5.6 models. And honestly, the tools are moving so fast right now, they're kind of outpacing our ability to use them.
They really are. The tech is ahead of the users.
Exactly. So our goal today in this deep dive classroom is to close that education gap so you can leverage agentic workflows. Things like computer use, self-correcting loops, and multi-threading. So grab a mental notebook, think about your own daily workflows, and okay, let's unpack this new super app.
Yeah, so the interface changes alone tell you exactly what OpenAI expects from different users now.
Yeah,
When you open it, you see this distinct split.
right.
You've got a Work tab and a Codex tab. And the Work tab is, it's your gentle introduction to agentic behavior for just general knowledge workers.
Yeah,
But the engine room,
your real powerhouse.
exactly, the place where autonomous software generation actually happened, that is the Codex tab.
Empowering that engine room are the new 5.6 models, right? We've
Yeah.
got Terra, Luna, and Sol. And like
Yeah.
Terra and Luna will probably handle the daily, I don't know, 70% of basic queries in that work tab. But Sol, GPT 5.6 Sol, that is the one we really need to focus on today.
Absolutely, because Sol is incredibly token efficient,
Yeah.
which basically means it processes the chunks of data that make up your prompts in your code using far less computing power.
Yeah.
It's fast, and it is exceptionally good at tool calling. It is the workhorse model.
Yeah, and what's interesting is why this matters right now.
Right, and what's fascinating here is the underlying economics of AI are really dictating this shift.
Yeah.
I mean, we are currently living in this golden era of subsidized AI,
Oh, totally.
where the immense computing power we use every day is priced way lower than it actually costs the companies to run. But, those subsidies won't last forever.
No.
And up until now, the industry has been obsessed with sheer intelligence, like OpenAI's Fable class models. And Fable is a monster.
It's unbelievable.
He can architect these complex multi-tiered systems in a single prompt. But Fable is incredibly expensive to run. So the 5.6 Sol model offers an unbelievable bang for your buck by doing all that mid-level labor almost for free.
So it's kind of like driving a hyper-efficient hybrid for your daily commute, that would be Sol, versus renting a Bugatti for a track day, which is Fable. Like you wouldn't take the Bugatti to the grocery store.
Exactly. Perfect analogy.
But okay, let me push back on that a little bit because I hear the cost argument, I do. But if Fable is this architectural genius that essentially guarantees my code won't break or, hallucinate weird errors, why wouldn't I just eat the extra token cost for the peace of mind?
Wow.
Like, why spend time optimizing prompts for a slightly less capable model like Sol?
It really comes down to the scale of autonomous workflows. If you are building a multiple-agent software factory, you aren't just sending one prompt.
Right. Yeah.
You are having the AI execute thousands of minor API calls, read dozens of files, and constantly verify its own work.
Wow. Yeah. Thousands.
Right. So having a Fable class model execute every single minor syntax check or like a CSS color change, it is going to burn through your operational budget instantly.
Okay, so it's like hiring a principal architect to design a skyscraper, but then paying their hourly rate to have them, like, swing a hammer and install the drywall on the third floor?
Exactly the right framing. You use the Fable model to design the structural integrity of the database schema. Then you hand that blueprint to a fleet of 5.6 Sol agents who just eagerly and very cheaply hammer the code out for hours on end without bankrupting you.
Makes sense.
So the vital skill right now is task aggregation, knowing exactly what you can trust 5.6 Sol with and saving Fable for the heavy lifting.
So if you're listening to this at work right now, maybe take a quick inventory of your daily AI use. Like, are you burning expensive, heavy compute intelligence on simple formatting or drafting tasks that Sol could just handle in its sleep?
Probably.
Yeah, probably. But to really take advantage of a highly capable model like Sol, we have to let it out of the chat box, right? We have to basically give it the keys to the vehicle, or the operating system in this case.
Yeah, and this is where we get into computer use. OpenAI actually sunset their standalone Atlas browser project, specifically to build browser and computer control directly into this new in-app experience.
Which is huge.
It is.
Hmm.
The AI can open multiple tabs, interact with virtual command line terminals, and even instantly host web apps using a new feature called Ad Sites. You literally just type the @ symbol in Sites, and it deploys what it just built.
And here's where it gets really interesting because it operates like an invisible intern. Like with previous iterations of computer use, the AI would basically hijack your screen, right?
Yeah, you can get that weird overlay.
Yeah, and you'd have to literally sit on your hands and watch the cursor slowly drag across your monitor like a ghost was using your mouse.
Exactly. It was so clunky.
But Codex's computer use happened entirely in the background. Like, you can be answering emails on your main monitor while the AI spins up these virtual headless browsers in the background to test your application.
And it's not just for developers writing Python scripts either. I mean, for operators, marketers, or really anyone doing repetitive digital labor, the record and replay feature is completely revolutionary.
Tell them about record and replay.
So you no longer have to write this flawless, highly detailed prompt explaining how to do like a tedious 30-minute data entry task. You simply click record, perform the task yourself, and the AI watches.
But wait, how is it actually watching? It's not just recording a video of the screen and guessing where to click, right? Because I feel like if a pop-up moves, a standard macro would just click empty space and break.
Right, yeah, it's significantly deeper than a screen recording. As you perform the task, the agent is mapping the DOM.
The document object model.
Exactly, the document object model of the website or application. It is logging the exact HTML elements you interact with, the structure of the data, and the underlying code of the interface.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it translates your manual clicks into a resilient, repeatable skill that the agent can execute later, even if the website's layout changes slightly.
Okay, but playing devil's advocate here, if it has that much deep access to my system and it operates silently in the background, how do I know it's not totally messing up my marketing campaign or sending half-written emails or dropping a critical database table while I'm eating a sandwich?
Well, that tension is the central challenge of agentic autonomy right now.
Yeah.
You cannot unleash an agent without guardrails.
Right.
Because if you have an invisible intern operating at the speed of compute, a small mistake compounds instantly. It happens in milliseconds.
Terrifying.
It is. So you need a system of verification built into the workflow so the agent knows exactly when it has succeeded and when it has failed, long before it ever has permission to hit save or send on your behalf.
Which brings us perfectly to the concept of loops.
Yeah.
Because if you want to run these background automations without constantly hovering over the AI's shoulder, you absolutely need a feedback engine.
Right. And a loop structurally consists of three things: a tightly defined prompt, a feedback engine, and a success criteria. So the AI does the work, evaluates its own output against your criteria, and if it fails, it iterates, it loops, and it does this over and over until it hits the exact target you set.
Okay, let's ground this for a second. How does an automated loop actually look for a software developer in practice?
Well, it looks a lot like a self-contained code review cycle. So you tell the GPT 5.6 Soul model to write a new feature. But you don't stop there. You instruct it to open a pull request, which is basically a proposal to merge its new code into your main project.
Right.
Then you tell the model to review its own proposed code and score it out of 5 for security, efficiency, and formatting.
Okay.
And if it scores below a 5, it is explicitly instructed to rewrite the code, fix the identified issues, and rescore itself. It acts as its own harshest critic.
That's amazing. So you could automate that entirely. Like you could say, every morning at 8 a.m., review all my open pull requests, run a security check, and if you find an anomaly, spin up a thread and loop until it's fixed.
That is exactly a software factory in a box. The developer just wakes up to finished, verified code.
But see, code is highly objective, though. Like it either compiles and runs or it throws an error. The feedback loop is binary.
Right.
But what about subjective fields? Like design or copywriting or video marketing? Because even seasoned human professionals argue constantly about what makes a thumbnail clickable or an ad script engaging. How can a feedback loop effectively measure subjective quality if the AI has no personal taste?
This raises an important question, and it really hits on the core of the new human-AI dynamic. The AI does not know what success looks like.
Okay.
So the human's job is no longer necessarily doing the manual labor of generating the text or the image. Your job is deeply defining what good is. And you do this through intense curation and comparison.
Interesting. So how do we actually give it that definition? Like, let's say I want it to generate video ad scripts.
Well, you bring in external APIs and multimodal tools. For example, you might connect your Codex agent to the Foreplay API.
Which is great, yeah.
Yeah, it's a tool that scrapes the longest-running, most financially successful competitor ads on the internet. Or you could use Gemini's video ingestion feature, because Gemini can watch an hour-long video, pull the subtitles, analyze the pacing, and evaluate the composition of the visual frames.
Wow.
Yeah, so you feed these highly successful, proven examples to your Codex agent.
So you're essentially building this high-dimensional map of what a perfect ad looks like.
Precisely. You give it the 20 perfect examples,
Mhm.
and those examples become the objective feedback engine for a completely subjective task.
That makes total sense.
Right, and then you instruct the AI to loop its own script generation until its pacing, its hook structure, and its visual cues match the exact structural baseline of the gold standard examples you provided. You become the art director.
So divers, think of a subjective task you do regularly. Maybe it's writing a weekly newsletter, designing pitch decks, drafting project proposals. If you can gather 20 perfect top-tier examples of that task, you suddenly have your feedback engine. You can build a loop. But here's the catch. If you try to build these complex feedback loops and run computer use recordings and manage multiple APIs all inside one single chat window, the AI is going to buckle under the weight.
Oh, completely. It will hallucinate, it'll drop context, and it'll completely forget the original instructions. And the technical reason for this is the context window.
Let's define the context window clearly for everyone. It's essentially the AI's short-term working memory, right?
Yes.
Every word, every piece of code, every failed attempt in your chat takes up tokens in that window.
Right. And a fresh AI thread with zero baggage will always outperform an AI that has, like, 120,000 tokens of messy conversation loaded to its memory.
Yeah, I've seen that.
If you have a single chat thread where you've asked the AI to fix a bug 5 different times, it is dragging the memory of all 5 of those failed attempts into its next calculation. So it gets confused about which version is the correct one.
So it's basically like a kitchen. Like if you force one chef to cook 10 entirely different meals simultaneously in one tiny cluttered kitchen, ingredients are going to get mixed up. You're going to end up with garlic in the cake batter.
Exactly.
And the solution isn't to yell at the chef. The solution is to put 10 chefs in 10 pristine, empty kitchens.
I love that analogy. And the Codex Super app allows you to act as the head chef managing those kitchens. This is multi-threading. You can prompt Codex to spin up 10 separate tasks in 10 different isolated threads simultaneously.
Just boom, boom, boom.
Right. You can say, I need the front end updated, the database migrated, and the marketing copy drafted. Do these in isolated threads. And you literally watch the new threads pop up on your sidebar.
That is so cool.
Yeah, and you can walk away. When you come back, you don't have to read 10 separate chats. You just ask the main AI manager to read the threads and generate a single summary document with clickable links to all the verified, looped work.
And this scaling, it gets even crazier when you factor in the building block economy. Guillermo Rauch from Vercel has been talking a lot about this.
Yes, he has.
Agents don't need to write every single line of code from scratch anymore because there is an entire economy of pre-configured tools built specifically for AI to use, like Lego blocks.
Right, like Convex for backend databases.
Yeah.
Or Daytona for code sandboxes.
Yeah.
And Vercel's Eve framework for agent communication. They snap complex projects together.
Let's break down why a sandbox like Daytona is so crucial for an agent. Because if the AI is going to test code, you really don't want it running that test directly on your live operating system, right?
Definitely not. A sandbox provides an isolated, secure environment where the code can run without affecting your actual machine at all.
Right.
And in the past, setting up that environment manually, it took hours of installing dependencies and configuring paths.
It was a nightmare.
Yeah. But Daytona allows the AI to instantly spin up a perfect containerized sandbox, run its tests, and then pare the sandbox down when it's done. Just like that.
And then the Eve framework acts like a sous chef prepping the ingredients. Eve pre-configures the file structure so the agent knows exactly where everything lives. The folders are explicitly named things like skills, tools, sandbox. So the AI doesn't have to guess where to find the database credentials. They're exactly where the framework says they will be.
Exactly. It just snaps everything together seamlessly.
But wait, if the AI is managing its own isolated threads and summarizing its own work and building its own sandboxes and snapping pre-built code blocks together,
Yeah.
aren't digital products just becoming markdown files? Like, If the entire execution is just auto-generated blocks, where is the human value in all of this?
Well, if the product is just a series of API connections and auto-generated files,
Mm-hmm.
then you're right. The human value is no longer in the manual labor of typing out the syntax or clicking the buttons.
Right.
The value shifts entirely to orchestration and imagination.
Orchestration.
Yes, you are moving from being the line worker to being the CEO of your own software factory.
Oh, I like that.
The AI can build the infrastructure flawlessly, but you still have to define the problem. You have to select the right tools for the right job, curate those feedback loops we talked about to ensure high quality, and ultimately ensure the final output actually serves a real human need.
Wow.
Basically, AI can build it, but it cannot dream it.
That is such a good way to put it. So, divers, the next time you have a multi-step project, force yourself to stop cramming everything into one long, messy chat. Open a brand new thread for every distinct subtask. Manage your AI like a team of specialists, not one exhausted assistant.
Because we've covered a massive shift today, the merging of ChatGPT and Codex really represents a fundamental change in our interaction paradigm.
It really does.
We've gone from querying an oracle to managing a team. We explored the cost efficiency of the 5.6 SOL model, how record and replay maps the DOM to execute background computer tasks,
Yeah.
and the absolute necessity of building autonomous feedback loops to verify quality and how to scale those workflows using pristine context windows and multi-threading.
So the biggest takeaway here is that the bottleneck is no longer a lack of tools. The tools are here, they are incredibly cheap, and they are powerful. The real opportunity, the thing you can capitalize on, is the education gap.
Yes.
Because while others are arguing online about marginal benchmark scores, you can accelerate your capabilities by mastering these agentic workflows. Your most valuable professional skills are now clear writing, recognizing and curating good design, and clearly defining the criteria for success.
Absolutely. But, knowledge is only truly valuable when it is applied.
Which means we want you to take action right now. Seriously, try just one of these workflows today. Try using the @sites command to build a quick one-page web app. Or try defining a strict feedback loop for an email draft you've been putting off. Just get your hands dirty.
And if you found this deep dive valuable, we have a few ways you can help us keep the classroom running.
Yes, please like this deep dive and subscribe so you never miss a session. And definitely click on the affiliate marketing links in the description below to check out tools like Convex and Daytona. It's a great way to explore the building block economy while supporting the show.
For sure.
You can also grab some exclusive deep dive classroom gear from our fourth wall merchandise store. And most importantly, jump into the comments and suggest new topics or tools you want us to cover. We read all of them, and your feedback directly shapes the curriculum of what we dive into next.
And before we sign off, we want to leave you with a final thought to chew over.
Yeah, think back to our opening image. If an AI can be left entirely alone, managing its own threads, building its own sandboxes, and correcting its own code to build a working, multiplayer video game clone in just 4 hours.
What wild, previously impossible idea from your childhood are you going to finally build this weekend?
Dive deep, and we'll see you next time.